And welcome back. I'm your instructor, Dr. Domiko L. Cunningham, and today we'll be continuing to look at our Vertigo Galette here inside of Autodesk 2015 Maya. So at this point, I've got most of the body of the car actually worked out pretty well in here inside of Maya. I'm going to turn off our resolution gate, and as you can see, the car is pretty well defined at this point. I don't have the interior finished for this car yet. I still have to finish the interior for this, and some other pieces to add on to it, like the front glass and the rear cockpit glass, and doing some little touch-up things. But some things that I wanted to talk about was actually being able to set up this guy for render, so you can at least see some of the process of setting it up for a finished render, and how you would get that to come across in your final output of this particular model. So looking at this, I can see that right now, if I look at this actually right now, the model is not smooth. So currently this model, except for the tires and the rims and stuff like that, this stuff is still nerve geometry, but everything else on my car is actually polygonal geometry. So the main part of the body, the interior cockpit that's sitting in there, the trunk, the rear bumper, and then the front scoop and hood are all polygonal pieces. So inside of Maya, I can hit 3 on the keyboard and see a smooth proxy version of what this will look like when it's smooth. Now the thing about this is that this is not real. Maya can render that as as a final output, but if we render it right now and we see what this looks like, let's actually hit this up for a render really quick. See what our render view looks like. I'm going to pause the video real quick and we'll come back and see what this rendered view looks like. So we can see in our render currently that the car renders and everything's in there, but our car is not smooth. So I could go and actually go to mesh and apply a smooth there, but there's actually another tool inside of Maya in conjunction with Mental Ray that makes the smoothing of our model actually very easy to handle. And what that is the approximation editor. So with the approximation editor, I'm going to keep a copy of this. So I'm going to keep a copy of this image, and let's just minimize this for right now. So to actually put a smooth on this that can actually show up at render time, and this will help with working with your model and keeping your models very low polygon, and then at render time you can actually subdivide your model and add in the extra details that you need. This also works very well if you're doing things like displacement maps or other things of that nature, because it can actually tensillate the model at render time to get the detail that you need from a displacement map or things of that nature that you're trying to do to your model. So for this particular model, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this to my approximation. So to get to the approximation editor, I want to go to Window, go to Rendering Editors, go down to Mental Ray, and then I want to go over here to Approximation Editor. I'm going to click on Approximation Editor. So once again, Window, Rendering Editors, Mental Ray, and then Approximation Editor. So I'm going to select everything in my vehicle that is a polygon surface. So I'm going to click the interior, the trunk, the back bumper, and the front of my car, as well as the lenses that I have for the headlights. So every polygonal piece of my car right now is selected. Inside of my approximation editor, you'll see that it shows displacement tensillation, which we're not doing a displacement. It shows subdivision, and in parentheses, polygon and subdivision surfaces. And then the last one is NURBS tensillation for surfaces and for trim curves. Well, right now we're just going to be applying this to polygonal surfaces. So I'm going to come in here, everything's already selected, and with everything currently selected, I'm going to hit Create. By doing that, you'll see if I click on my models that there is now a brand new node that's been attached to all the stuff. Everything is now attached to this edit, well, to this mental ray subdivision approx 1. So I'm going to hit edit on that, and you'll see inside of this shape, if I look down in here, there is my mental ray subdiv approx 1, and it lives on all of the pieces that were added to that particular approximation. So you can have more than one approximation. So I'm going to minimize this. So inside of my mental ray subdivision, my subdiv approx 1, I want to turn on some properties for this. Approximation method, I want to change this from parametric to length, distance, and angle. The other thing is I want to make sure that I have some subdivision going on. So at the least, I want to subdivide my car 3 times. At the most, I want to maybe subdivide it maybe 6. And I want to, before I do anything else, once I get my subdivision set, I want to turn on this checkbox right here which says view dependent. I'm going to check that on. By turning this on to view dependent, I actually can, the settings that I'm using are going to work off of the camera view in my viewport. So if things are closer to the camera, they will subdivide more. Farther away from the camera, they'll subdivide less. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to set a length for my subdivision. By looking at this right now and having it set to view dependent, my subdivision, or whether my length rather, is being counted in pixel count. So it's counting it by 1 pixel. So I'm going to say 0.5, so half a pixel. So what this is going to do, it's going to either subdivide my model 3 times or 6 times based off of the distance of half a pixel, because it's set to view dependent. Now that this is set, I can close all that. I'm going to open up our old render. This was our original render, and let's render again. I'm going to pause it so that we can let this render out, and I'll show you the difference between the two. So as you can see in our current render, after using the approximation editor, our polygonal surfaces actually have all subdivided at render time. So if I look back at the original image, we were rendering about 8 seconds and nothing was smoothing out. And then just by adding the approximation to our polygon surfaces, I'm able to get these nice clean polygonal surfaces, and everything rendered out in about 1:30. And you know, it's a trade-off by doing your tensillation, because it's taking time at render time to actually go through the run through everything and smooth all your stuff out for you. So it does take time. It does add time to your render, but it also gives you control that in your viewport you can be working with this low polygonal model or a lower polygonal model, and then at render time you can get the high quality version that you really truly need. And in our next video we'll be looking at how to set this up for render. So we're going to be doing some things with the daylight system. We're also going to be using Final Gather to help with the lighting, and I'm going to be showing you how to use an HDRI image, because that's something that is important that people talk about using for lighting schemes. But how to render out an HDRI image, or how to actually use an HDR image to enhance your render. So we'll be looking at all those things in our next video.